Welcome to Worse Than You with Mo Fry Pasick, me. I'm Mo, and every week I'm asking today's most captivating artists how they got their act together. This show is not about their best or most famous or money-making art. It's about the work that means the most to them, their creative process, and why they make their art. And logistics, baby. I gotta get pen to paper. This week's guest is a writer and producer. You know her from projects like The Tonight Show starring Jimmy Fallon, I Love That For You, and American Auto. And you also know her from being one of my dear sisters. Please welcome to the pod, Albertina Rizzo. Ready, set, show!
Imagine what's possible when learning doesn't get in the way of life. At Capella University, our game-changing FlexPath learning format lets you set your own deadlines so you can learn at a time and pace that works for you. It's an education you can tailor to your schedule. That means you don't have to put your life on hold to pursue your professional goals. Instead, enjoy learning your way and earn your degree without missing a beat. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu.
And we can begin.
Yay!
Yay! How are you, my friend?
I'm good. Can you believe we're speaking into microphones?
So, okay, I love to talk about the play while the play's happening. It is interesting, the artifice of a podcast. So Vanya, my cat, is
right next to me right now.
Experiencing Albertina's cat through her jacket.
Really, I love it, though.
He did this. There was one time a mustard seed plant, which is like the origin of catnip or something.
Yes.
I had in my bag, and he went ham on the Versace sunglasses case that had touched the mustard seed plant. And that's kind of a dip into my life.
Oh, he's into the 90s. I got it.
I get it. But he's really feeling her right now. So that could be a distraction. But what's fun that feels silly right now is that the listeners listening,
yes,
obviously through space and time, whenever they're listening. But Albs and I are cheers
all the time,
which means we love to talk about everything.
Yes.
So to talk about this in a formal way with the lens of knowing we're being perceived it's a weird feeling.
It's strange.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because we're not being perceived right now, but we know we're going to be perceived.
Oh, yeah. No, for sure. We're being perceived.
Okay. So question, I'm already going to off to the races.
Yes.
Because I'm going. Has that affected the route your creativity has taken? Because Albertina is an incredible writer, but she's also like this magnetic, beautiful sort of star quality.
Well,
and you do. You're stunning and
Okay.
interesting. And I'm going, is writing like the way you channeled that sort of like glow that you have or excitement and curiosity?
Well, listen, I love you because you gassed me out.
I love you because it's easy to.
Thank you. See, already. Perception?
I know. Because indulge.
Okay, we're going to indulge.
Pretend I'm your friend and nobody listens to my podcast and you're being so nice to me.
Well, it's easy, my friend. I remember having sit downs with they used to call them informationals with like interns when I worked at The Tonight Show. And they would always ask me it's like, how did you go about doing what you did? And it does feel like I kind of stumbled upon those things because, and I can say that this is true to how I am now. And I don't say it to sort of put on this thing that I'm like, oh, I'm
no, indulge. This is literally your process
or whatever it is. But I do think that because I tend to value living life a little more, it gives me a little bit more of an arm's length relationship to career stuff in the best way possible.
Yes. It's not your value.
No.
Yes.
And that doesn't mean that I don't have things that I want to do and I'm not ambitious in my own way, but not at the expense of
life.
Yes. I'm sure it's different for everybody. I think a lot of people want to, get an award and do this and do that. And all those things.
Honey, you gotten them.
Yeah.
Mama.
Have I? Maybe. No, I don't
Your
think
American
I have.
Auto episode, yeah?
Well, I think I got something. I don't remember.
See, Party Rock. And you're being real about that.
I'm genuinely, I'm telling you. I think it got nominated for something. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. And I'm not saying those things aren't nice. And I would like those things because it just seems like a cool experience. But I do tend to do things because I think they'll either be fun or because I like experiencing just life.
Yeah, that might feel good.
I like being in rooms because I like being around people and I'm interested in people. That's truly the reason. I like having, when I do my little jokes, I like having an audience for those jokes.
Okay,
that is truly what I get a kick out of.
Back to the logistics of that.
Yes.
Are you sitting at home going like, I spend an hour a day doing this, or is it that sort of I'm going on a walk so I can see things, so I can think funny things? Like, what's the actual process?
Well, I think that if you don't do things and you don't leave the house, you won't be good at what you do.
Yeah.
If you are a person who writes.
Yes.
I think that is very rare. I mean, unless I'm sure Tolstoy probably lived in a bunker somewhere, but...
Well, famously, remember what I said the other day, which I wish a lot of these sort of Nepo, very wealthy children would write like Tolstoy, who accepted and where he was at, and his, instead of trying to create this like overcoming narrative and this trauma narrative.
Yes.
And it's like, you can still have the trauma. The Anna Karenina is devastating, but it's like, don't create a life that you've never lived.
No, I know. And you know, I think everybody tries to be like, well, I should be more like this. I should be more like that. I think so much of it, I remember when I was writing jokes, like 90 jokes a day or something like that about the news, which was insane, which was an insane way to go about things. But I'm so glad I did that. But I'd have to leave and have dinner with a friend or something to recharge my brain. And it's not like they said anything funny. It's that you need perspective in life. You need to be able to do things and go out and leave your house. It's part of life is funny.
Yeah.
If you're a comedy writer, like everything about life is funny, even the sad parts, they're funny. So you have to experience those things to sort of get that motor going. If you're sitting in your house trying to say, I'm going to be the next, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, or I'm going to be the next whoever it is that you admire, Sharon Horgan or whoever.
Diva down.
Both women. Notice how I said that. But you're going to try to solve this puzzle on your own when a lot of the time it's just like, go out, be a person, talk to people. And if you're funny and you're interested in life, it'll come to you. It's not a skill that is just like
practiced in a
democratic
in a
or fairly distributed. It is just one of those things where like you'll know it when you have it and then go with God. But when I'm sitting there and I'm trying to think of something, a lot of it is somebody's demanding it from me.
Okay.
I'm not a self-starter.
Same. Not one bit.
No,
not one
I'm not
bit.
A self-starter. So
I will touch the flowers for the rest of my life.
If I had all the money in the world, I would buy myself a boss because I need somebody to be
myself a boss.
I know it is.
I'm putting it on a shirt. That's incredible.
I buy myself a boss, but because I know that that's how I am. Because I'm too interested in other parts of life to not be drawn to that.
You're healing me with that right now because I always feel that guilty pressure of like when the best excellence is being your own boss and being in charge. And I don't want to. I need someone else to do that because I'm off being inspired.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't say it in the Amelie like dreamy kind of way, although sometimes I can be like that.
You are. Yeah.
I just think, I'm so cognizant of time and like the time we have and like it's the only thing we don't get back. So I like to use my time to enjoy myself.
I agree. It's not like I can't focus.
Yes.
I can do it. But oh my God, why?
Yeah, I don't like putting myself through unnecessary
I hear
boredom.
Unnecessary
or tedium if I don't have to. But sometimes you got to do, this is adulthood, right? Yeah. So you got to sit down and, do your taxes and you got to sit down and write the thing. Tedium. Otherwise it's not going to get done. Once you start doing it, it's fun. Like, I love doing punch up. I don't know why I love doing punch up, but I love doing punch up.
You know why punch up is incredible? Because it's already written. It's already written, one, and then you get to see everything that's wrong.
Oh, it's like the best.
It's like when someone's wearing an outfit, you can be like, I would not wear that, but I'm putting on an outfit, no idea.
It's going into a house and rearranging the pillows.
Oh, I know
it's great.
How to do that.
It's great. I love it so much. I would do it for the rest of my life, but I also like to challenge myself to try to think of something of my own. But just to give you an idea of why I like those things, it's because it's already there. I don't want to say it's a laziness. It's just I'm driven by Joy.
You are.
I am driven by joy and avoiding discomfort as often as possible. Clearly, that is one of my things.
You know what I'd say is like, so the interesting theme that's kind of coming out through this is like, kind of a lot of people, especially with artists, are talking constantly about either like emotional regulation or like understanding yourself in order to make the art. And what you're saying, which I like, is that you're like, no, that's not been the case. Like, you're like, my sort of either emotional avoidance or like emotional too much has all been like, it's almost been grounded by the work. It's not even from that space. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. And
I think this idea that it's from or you need to figure something out within you to make, it's like, no, let the art be the thing that like kind of anchors in whatever is happening.
People overthink things so much, and you can tell when they're overthinking it. And I'm just like, if something sounds fun and enjoyable, I'm going to do it.
Yeah, you're very driven for joy, is what you're saying. Like,
yes, I will always try something new. I'll try a thing that I think, I definitely have my own sensibility and things that make me laugh a lot. And I like to write comedy. I know that that's the thing that I like most. I like writing jokes and I like things that make me laugh. And whatever is in that space, I will try. Yeah. But I never kind of had, starting off, I remember, okay, the clear idea living in New York City would be working in late night because that was the only game in town, right?
Oh, I love that being the idea.
So that was the only reason I thought of it. I didn't think of it because my dream was necessarily, I didn't know that it was that. I just figured, okay, well, what makes sense to me?
Yeah.
I like writing jokes. I like the immediate response of jokes. I like the feedback of things, of telling a joke.
Yes.
And I don't want to do stand-up. And I don't want to be a performer. So how do I do that? I need to be a writer. Okay. So I read about writers.
So deductive.
So it's like I'm deducing. Yeah. I'm like, how does that fit into
the mathematical
my thing?
Equation?
My parents had nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
My teachers had nothing to do with it. I would even say my surroundings had nothing to do with it. I love this. I just kind of figured out like, okay, well, that's sort of what I'm supposed to.
Here's where I'm at and what works within that.
Yeah. And then I hung out with people who did that.
Yeah.
And then through that, obviously, you are like, okay, that's maybe how it's done. Or maybe that's how it's done. Yes. That's a version of it.
Is that one for me? No.
Yeah. And for me, I always knew like this is why it's kind of interesting that I'm doing this because I, for the most part, don't like being on display.
Yeah. Pods.
I'm generally not that kind of way.
You, have you like sort of.
I'm not shy. I just don't.
I know. I'm
there's
curious.
Nothing about.
Is there like, because I also think you're protective in a good way over yourself and your emotions. And so I'm wondering if do you think that is a resistance to being a star, to being perceived, or do you think you're just kind of like, you know what? No, this is for me. They'll see it in my writing. Like, have you thought about where that comes from?
I just think anonymity is really powerful. I think anonymity is the best thing also for humor. You can get away with a lot.
Say more.
You can get away with a lot.
Because perspective, yes.
Anonymity is
what perspective
power.
is it being told from doesn't matter.
That's why I'm always like, who wants to be known and seen? You can't get away with anything.
I love this. Oh yeah, a little devious. And that's the mischief of question.
Yeah.
Of like,
so that's, of course. That's why I always liked like, it's being the Wizard of Oz, when you write little jokes for somebody else to say and they're a little bit naughty.
You're behind the green curtain.
Yes.
Oh.
And also when you write it in a script,
it's such a little kid.
Somebody else is saying it. It's the best.
It's little kid. It's good. Do it. Say it. Do it.
So you get to dive into the thing that because you are a nice person and you don't ever want to say those things.
Sure.
You can create a character who does say those things and that's you.
Exhilarating. That really is.
Yeah. No. So there's a way in which, it kind of scratches the itch of the little devil in you that wants to get away with certain things.
Yeah. It's so funny because it is so mischievous in that energy of like, getting someone to say something or like, there is a lot of power in it because also I think this weird obsession with like I was talking about this and I didn't have good examples, but the authenticity of a stand-up story, whereas like one, if it's like they're monetizing sort of experiences that are marginalized, not their own, great. But then we also swing into the space of like, David, not every single David Sedaris story is exactly, it's like, well, no, he's a writer.
Also, doesn't he like cosplay a little bit? Like his whole thing is cosplay. Like he'll bag groceries for 2 years.
He'll what?
He'll bag groceries for 2 years and then write a story about it. Yeah. That is, he's doing full performance art. Yeah, I love it. Yeah.
But I read someone they were like, but did you hear? And I was like, that affects any part of your consumption of his work? What?
Yeah, who cares?
Who cares?
Yeah.
And what I'm excited and what I hear you saying, because I really resonate with this because the reason I liked comedy and the reason I still like, even in the play, when it was like sad or whatever, comedy.
You're very funny, naturally.
Thank you. So are you. we're bubbly. But it is. I love being funny. And even when I'm quote unquote good acting or making people feel deep emotion, it is not fun for me. And I don't mean bad for me.
No, I'm the same way. I hate writing earnest.
And you're good at it.
Well, here's the thing. I think sincerity is brave.
It is. No, it's completely brave.
It's courageous to be sincere in life.
Not but separate from all that.
Very scary. And when you write it, see, I have no problem being sincere with people that I'm very close to.
Yeah.
Like, you know me.
No, you're open.
I'm sentimental.
Yes.
I feel things deeply.
Yes, you do.
It
shows in your work.
But when I have to write something that is like kind of cuts to the core of something that I've actually felt or is serious, I have such a hard time with it because I think I am so private in a lot of ways that it's like I have a thing where it's like somebody's gonna read this and be like, this corny ass. You know what I mean?
Like, because it hurts you. That would hurt you.
It's too vulnerable. Like that's where the sort of my upbringing shows where it's like you are like this at your core, but you just don't want to show it too much. Like it's so hard.
Not that you're denied internally. It's just the external reception of it.
Oh yeah, it's scary. Yeah. Also, by the way, I'm certain that so much of my kind of laissez-faire, whatever perspective of how I go about things in certainly in my career and stuff is a self-preservation thing. It's like if you don't,
which is fine,
attach yourself too much to it, you won't be disappointed. And I think it served me well, but not in the way where it's like, I don't think it's in a way that's like holding back or anything.
Sure.
I just think it's a healthy view of all of this because all of this is so fleeting and it goes, the mandate changes constantly and, people become, what people think is cool and interesting and is the type of comedy they want to hear is this, and then it changes to that. So you can't really hold on to one specific thing. You can only hold on to what you like to do,
go with that. But your ability to ask, and it might be from this, to ask that question, right? And say without an attachment to an answer, like it could be from this. Most people are either avoiding a truth that they know, so they're doing things, or they're, pushing something down. You're allowing a feeling. Like, I think that's the difference, right? Is that your ability to ask about yourself without judgment of being like, yeah, I could be super avoidant. It's like a paradox where the second you ask it, it's not true because you're asking the question and you're open to the answer. You're not avoiding, right?
Right. No, that's true.
And to the laughter point, I personally am a little bit opposite in the sensitive personal stuff. I can write the personal stuff all day. That actually comes with ease.
Oh, you're so good at it. And I was so moved by what you wrote.
So sweet.
And you were able to sort of open your diary that, like, that to me is terrible. I'm terrified of.
So to me, here's where it aligns. That's not the diary. I'll tell anybody that. I experienced something and I think it could help people in my perspective. The diary are my jokes. The diary are the things I think are funny. Because to me, when I tell you an emotional thing, I don't know how people react with their emotions, right? It's internal. Sometimes they cry, sometimes they're moved. You can't see it, but with a laugh, you literally immediately hear how they feel.
Yes, it's immediate response.
You hear how, and it's universal. You hear how they feel. And to me, that is so exhilarating. And it makes sense to me that you want to connect with people in that way because all of this, right? All of my art and comedy, I need to do in relationship I need to be in relationship with something or someone. So even if it's a writer from the past who I am inspired by or a co-writer, I need to be in reaction and response to something or I'm making nothing.
Yeah, no.
And I think you're very similar.
Yeah, I am the same way. But also, I find that it's, I have moments where I'm just like, I talk to a friend about something and I get so excited about it. And then that's when I do it. But it doesn't come with like...
Yes, because you're in a relationship.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Or like I meet somebody who it just like triggers something that makes me think of something, or I read something. I mean, I'm sure that's how everybody does it, but...
I don't think I'm learning. I don't think it is.
But it doesn't come very often for me. That's why it's like some people are always writing things and developing things and like they're like, they have 5 million movie ideas. I kind of just go with whatever feels. I can't sit in front of a computer and write something just for the sake of like, I should sell some. I can't do that. And it's not because I'm better or worse at anything. It's just that I am physically incapable of putting myself
I love
through.
this. I think there's so many people like this that need to hear this because my thing is I actually have more than 100 million movie ideas. I have 1 billion. And I think the fact that that person could sit down and write 10 is actually very concentrated and very few ideas. And I think that's incredible. The only way I'm going to ground my sort of connection to the cosmos to choose from inspiration is if someone on this earthly plane is like, bring that one down. I can't.
Well, you know what you're talking about?
What?
Buying yourself a boss. That's what I've been talking about.
Earthly plane boss. I would consider you one of my bosses. If you like something I did, I am like salivating.
And I would be a very lenient boss.
But in the boss of like, if Albertina liked it, I'm inspired to keep going down that path.
Well, that's very nice. I feel like same.
Yeah?
Yeah, of course, because it's important to me that the people that I adore like what I do. I think about how when I started, I really was, it was the army. You know, it was the army.
Are we allowed to call
it was clown army. Afghanistan.
Yeah, there we go.
Afghanistan, as I like to. It's coined by me.
That's the funniest thing ever. When I found out, Sudi like came to me like she had just gotten a present. She was like, "Guess what? I just found out Albertina called 30 Rock Afghanistan."
Well, the problem is that I said that to somebody who had just come back from war, and I don't think it was like.
Oh, you were like, "This is my war."
Yeah. No, okay. Literally, that's what I did
in response to. Yeah, okay. I love you so much.
He did not think it was funny.
But that is symbolic of exactly what we're talking about. That risk,
well, that's where I was quick on
that
my
mischievous.
feet.
Yes,
yeah, I was a little mischievous. Yeah. But it was one of those things where I was like, oh, I don't run out of ideas. Nobody runs out of ideas. That I don't believe that. I think the brain has endless ideas. So I could potentially, as somebody who had to do it every 200 days a year.
Yes.
Worked in vaudeville essentially because you're doing live theater.
Ham.
That's what it is. You're performing for an audience of 200 every single night.
Topical jokes
or
every single night.
Every single night.
Crazy.
Yeah, and sketches and this and that. I mean, were they always my taste? No, of course not. But you're writing every single day. So that alone tells you, oh, if I wanted to, I could write 8 million scripts.
Honey,
I've done it.
Infinite, Jess. More
it's
like
that I don't want to.
I don't want to.
I want to go outside and have a wonderful conversation with another human being. I want to see the sun. I want to do the things.
So you want the lady to ask you what you're going to do with your kale.
Exactly. Exactly. Go to the farmer's market. So, right now I feel like when I'm talking about all this, it's like, well, how does this bitch get anything?
It's so clear. No.
I really do.
If you listen to this back, it's going to be very clear.
What is it that I'm doing for? It's like, again, unless somebody is my boss and demands like Thursday we need a script, I'm not doing it. But I also think that that's why I've been able to enjoy what I do because I do not find that there is a thing that's going to scratch the itch that's going to be the thing. I think that will come to me when it comes to me. I'll roll into that when I roll into it. I'll find it when I find it. I think the point is a little bit to try things and the journey. That's the point. There is no purpose.
This is us shopping.
Purpose is pointless.
This is us shopping. It's little trinkets going, I like that. Do I like that? Do I like that?
Yeah, that's the whole gig.
Yeah.
That's the whole gig. And then maybe you fall into something like the way that I did, which is like, you deduce, right? Because you can only deduce when you're doing things. So like you go when you're on set writer in a movie and you're like, do I like movies or do I want to do this? Or you find tonally, does this appeal to me more or do I not like doing this kind of writing or this kind of writing? But it can only happen if you do it.
And you're also constantly in conversation with your own feeling. How did this feel? How does this make me feel?
Precisely.
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer that purpose is bullshit.
I love this. You sent me that incredible video on it.
Yeah. Listen, I love my friends who are very successful and have, big goals. And they're like, I want to be a showrunner and producer and I want to make a movie and all those things. There are aspects of all of those things that I want to do. And I think it's very linear. But I have found that for me, I've had more success in my own personal happiness and like creativity when I just take risks and kind of do things that are presented to me. And it's funny because it's like sometimes it'll be like, well, you wrote for a show where a monkey kills people.
Obsessed.
I'm like, sure. Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I said yes to that job because I really like the showrunners.
Yeah.
And it ended up being one of my favorite experiences of all time. And I learned how to write action scenes and I learned how to write. It was my first room. It was a very safe room and it really changed my life in a lot of ways. And from that, I met people that I, again, like were very important to me. And then I realized I loved LA and then I did this.
Because you were driven by an initial relationship, not what you thought it might get you.
Yeah, I was driven by a feeling.
Yeah.
Like I knew in my head, I was like, well, I know I don't want to write action probably, but maybe I'll get something out of this. Yeah. And I do everything in life with that perspective. And I do think that you kind of fall into place if you do that. For me, I've found that.
I'm exhilarated that people are hearing this because I think a lot of people do things this way, but maybe just have shame or guilt around it. And I'm like, this is a way to do things. See, that's exactly why I ask, because I do think of you as an artist and creative because you have many outlets you could do. So that's but
they're fairly limited.
No, I think they are.
Clown and then
you're
make
a massive
coffee
clown
at a coffee shop. Those are my two skills.
Clown and coffee shop.
Yeah, those are my two skills.
We're gonna put in the bio: writer, clown, and coffee shop.
Yeah. I could probably do something else, but I haven't figured it out.
But
yet.
it takes sustained focus or like presence or opportunity. And I think I was such like a literal processor when people would be like, I knew I wanted to write, so I practiced, so I did this. And it's so linear when everyone's telling their stories.
Yeah.
That I want to like just like remind people that you can have incredible successes without being like, that's my manifestation. I want to do late night.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, there are some people that are very driven and they have like a kind of much more structured, kind of goal-oriented way of doing things. And I think that this town is full of those people. Clearly, it's full of those people. People who are just like, I will not stop till I get A, B, and C.
Specifically, yes.
Specifically, A, B, and C. Like my worth is determined.
Do you need me to move him?
No, not at all. I love him. Oh.
I started telling you, he's really having a relationship that you're not aware of.
Relationship with me, and I'm feeling upset. Let's just pretend this is my publicist. So, so I guess I'll just say it the way that we would say it if we were at dinner. And I think that a lot of people that go into writing or go into anything creative or television writing per se, they seem to have, and in this town specifically, because I'm still fairly new to Los Angeles. Like I moved here in 2019 and, you count COVID out of that. It feels like 2 years.
Yeah, I agree.
Total. But there are people that treat it like a business. And I sort of think that because I grew up with parents who were not very disciplined, my parents never expected me to go to medical school or graduate, or even go to college. They didn't have many expectations from me, but that's not because they didn't think I could do it. They wanted to leave it open.
Yeah.
They had a much more bohemian.
It's more of an abstract expectation.
Yeah. I remember being like a kid and telling my dad I was bored because they would have a lot of like friends over. My dad was a painter and my mom was an art dealer for a brief period of time.
So cool.
And, they would have people over, really interesting people from all walks of life and, growing up in New York City. And they were obviously...
Albertina was in New York City proper, like the city. Yeah. For context, but yeah.
Not Rye. It was New York City, but much respect to people who say they're from New York City. Rye, beautiful place to live.
Blessings.
We could have never afforded it. So, my dad, both parents were not from here. They were born and raised in different countries. So they had kind of no tether to the United States. So their friends were from all over the place. And they would come over and talk about, I mean, not to make it like a Noah Baumbach movie, but it was very much that kind of environment where the kids were expected to be part of the socializing.
Yes, mine too. My family was the exact same way.
And you're out. They don't hide you in the back room. Like, you're out.
You're conversing.
Yeah, and so you kind of had to figure out how to speak to adults. And I remember very specifically, I would tell my dad, I'm bored. I want to do something like as a kid. And he'd be like, you can't be bored. You're interesting.
Oh, what an incredible
You
response.
can't be bored.
You can't be bored. You're interesting.
Your only job, I almost felt like my task in life was to be interesting. And by that, I mean, and that seems very self-absorbed, kind of like, I'm interesting. Everybody's interesting.
No.
Everybody's interesting. He was just...
It's like telling a kid you can do anything. It's like...
Well, you can also, it just means be curious. Read something, learn about something that is outside of your periphery. Be curious about the world outside of yourself.
But it's not like, what was it, the word you just used, like self whatever. It's not at all, because the reason
self-indulgent.
Yeah, but it's not, because the reason you and I have conversations that go 100 years is because you'll start a story, right? And a lot of people start it with the intent, even if it's in a sweet way, but the intent of either impressing someone or like getting to know someone, or it's telling about them. Whereas I'll stop you in the middle of the story and be like, what's this? And you're curious too about my question.
Yes.
And so it is very much so, I think, that interest and curiosity, it's like, if you're interesting, then you have interest in everything else, because as above, so below, as within, so without.
Yes.
And it's like, you are constantly asking questions, which I think every actor wishes. They're in classes trying to figure out, you know what I mean? Every writer wishes. And it's like, to me, that's so much more exciting than waking up and being like, I did my morning pages, I did this goal, I manifested this. It's like, ask a question,
Yeah, you should always be asking questions.
Ask an effing question.
Also, nothing is, you don't know shit. Most people don't know anything.
You know what the great philosopher I referenced at our dinner the other night was? Donald Rumsfeld.
Yeah.
The mystic.
Who I look up to.
The stoic and mystic Donald Rumsfeld, who said,
Donnie Rumsfeld.
Donnie, who said, there's things you know, things you don't know, things you don't know, you don't know. And guess what?
Never been said by a better man.
And credited only to him.
And I should say I like him as a man.
We don't talk politics at the dinner table.
And his policies, obviously.
And the reveal.
So I never went into anything with a goal, per se.
Was your goal to be interested? Was your goal to be inspired versus to get this accolade?
I knew that I wanted to write jokes.
Okay. I love that.
As a kid.
Yeah? As a kid?
Yes. I loved writing jokes. I don't know why I loved writing jokes. I would truly watch television and then write an SNL sketch or write. Yes. I remember my dad watching David Letterman would have his top 10 list.
Oh my God. Would you write your own?
Yes.
Oh, what were they? Do you remember
write
some?
my own? No. It was pigeons and it was New York City. Very New York City coded kind of jokes where it was
sweetest.
I think I have some somewhere. My mom kept some of them, but I would make a top 10 list. And I also used to the Far Side cartoons.
Oh, I had every book of every collection.
And you know what I would do? I would put stickers on top of it and write my own captions.
Okay, genius.
Yes.
Are you kidding? I would repeat it like an earworm in my head for hours. I go, Betty, pull out. I think I hit an artery.
Oh, no.
When it's the mosquito.
The mosquito. I know. It's genius. I would say Far Side had such a huge influence on me.
That's why I think I just found our core imprint.
Oh, yes. Because it's absurdity.
But it's tender. It's smart.
So smart.
It's silly.
Gary Larson's
it. And
put respect on that name.
It's a comic strip for anyone who doesn't know. And it's very one panel comic. Mm-hmm. But there's some, that develop. But it'd be witty sort of New Yorker, but make it done by a weirdo, goofball. Yes. And it was like, there'd be a school sign. It says Midvale School for the Talented and Gifted. And there's a pull and push sign on the door. And the talented and gifted student is pushing on the pull door.
Yes, of course.
Right? Genius.
Classic. A classic.
A classic. Or like, I could list them all forever. But it is also in your humor, like clown, but so witty, so smart.
Yeah. And also there's a universal quality to it that I really like. If I had to sort of figure out what the thing was or what reminds me of why I wanted to do this, it was that.
It feels like inclusive, intelligent humor. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. And also like animals, there's also a little bit of a disconnect, which I think I felt comfortable with because it was animals. You know
Tony Soprano over here, the ducks.
Yeah, the ducks. It's very that.
It's very the ducks.
But my dad was very funny, and I liked.
Were your dad's paintings funny?
No,
really.
I wouldn't say his paintings, but he was a very funny person, and I really looked up to him. And he was very, he felt things very deeply. Kind of a neurotic person, I would say. Prone to mood swings, but
true artist, baby.
Yes, very much that. And I was kind of the peacekeeper in the family, but I took after him in that I was similar in that I held a lot of like emotional stuff to myself, but I found humor. Not to give this thing because it's like everybody who writes comedy is like, and it was a coping mechanism. I just felt comfortable in that space. I liked laughing. I liked things that made it funny because life was hard for me as a child. And I think it was not easy as a kid.
No, but you also were an adult. And like, especially when you have sort of like parents who, God bless them, but sometimes because they're artists, like my parents as well, like you can't emotionally regulate at times. And you're still feeling that as a kid.
Yes.
And I wish there was a less like pretentious word for dispelling the air, but like it's like a stand-up. You manipulate the energy of the room, right? You ameliorate. That's the word I'm thinking of.
Ameliorate is a great word. I love
it's great,
word.
But it feels like what you do with the energy in the room when it's like unregulated or tense. You make laughter happen, and then it's not so much you're coping, but you're changing the energy in the room. So then you aren't having to worry about that parent or whatever it is. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. No. Totally. I think at the time that I was writing those jokes and stuff, kind of matched up with a disruptive time in my life as a kid, and so was there a consistent disrupt, or was it just in general like consistent?
Okay, yeah.
And it makes sense.
Yeah,
it makes sense, and it also makes sense that is what I would want to do because they say that the developmental age is from 9 to 13 or 14, and whatever happens within those years tends to stick.
Oh fuck, I'm done. I'm toast. I'm toast. I'm toast.
So just put that in your notes.
No, I can't. I actually can't because I will give up.
So your taste tends to be linked to that. Your drive tends to be linked to that. This is just based on my own little deep dives that I tend to go on. That
are you kidding me? Don't look at my For You page.
I probably read it in like Psychology Today one time.
You better
but I'm sure it's true. So I guess I always knew from that age, just to bring it back, from like those years that I wanted to do something funny and then or like write jokes, but I didn't have any concept of how I was going to get to it because there was no roadmap in my family because first off, I'm first generation. Secondly, my parents were not disciplinarians per se. So there was no thing that they ever gave me, which I kind of envied in like other friends of mine. They would have, like parents who were at least gave them some kind of structure or mandate.
Just to affirm, like I did the same work where it's like my parents were the same sort of a more like supportive, but it wasn't like do this, do that. Yeah, I was the one like bringing home the volleyball forms and like doing the sort of like pushing, driving it forward.
That.
But did you like read your jokes in that? Was that like acknowledged at all, or was it like the way that you learned to adapt and give yourself structure, right?
Yes, I gave myself my own structure, but there was a little bit of method to the madness. So like as time went on and I knew that I didn't love school, for example, I was good at school. I was very good at school when I liked what I was doing. I was bad when I didn't like what I was doing.
When I liked it, I was literally the smartest person you ever met. I knew everything. I did extra work, like
history.
Oh my
languages.
God. Ancient cultures?
I
Are
took
you
Russian.
fucking joking? I studied Russian literature in college.
Of course.
Why? Because I liked it. That's nothing, the rest, I mean, on the floor. On the floor.
No.
But did you seek the stuff then?
Yes, okay. I sought it. And I think that made me realize that I wasn't really cut out to do things. I would never be good at something I wasn't interested in.
Was that a conscious realization or was that just kind of organic?
It was
That's beautiful.
It was a little bit of a conscious thing where it occurred to me that I would rather work at a coffee shop, which I did, than try to sort of get a writer's assistant.
You did this.
Yes,
build
I
the
just
thing.
knew that I just didn't have it in me.
Oh, this is revelatory for people.
And I didn't have money as a result, but like it didn't kill my spirit.
Yes,
which to me was more important than anything.
If something's killing your spirit, it's not worth it.
And at any level.
And even if it seems like a good idea and it might get you a job you think you want, it's still not worth it.
No, absolutely not. And that's a very privileged place to be, by the way, because a lot of people listen. Well, I hate
capitalism
money and I like
is
things.
designed
this
that way.
Quote friendly words. I hate money, but I love nice things. So I struggle with the
epitome of you.
Part of me that knows that I don't want to sacrifice my personal happiness and kill my spirit for these kind of things, but I also like flying mint.
Honey, and you like your little bags. I know you love your little bags.
I like a nice hotel.
Yeah.
So there is a push and pull there, but we're talking about the beginnings of
and
all
holistically.
Of this. And holistically, sure.
I know. Okay, so you're short on time. We have to get you out to get to your thing. So, we're gonna have you back for another cheat, but we have a final segment.
Okay, great.
Called "Thank You for Holding My Poems."
Okay, great.
Which you're very familiar with as a concept. Albertina was actually there at the origin of this phrase, which maybe I'll share. But I'll share that and then you can share your poem. So Albertina, me and Sudi were walking around and Sudi was telling Albertina a story that I had heard about Sudi's family. And there was this like minor detail that I remembered from like 5 years before about a cat's name. And Sudi looks at me and I told her the Akhmatova story like the week before and been sobbing because I thought it was so beautiful. And Sudi, who looked like she hadn't processed it at all in the moment and was like, in the most beautiful Sudi way, had completely synthesized it, completely taken it in.
Yes.
So to the point where she could just let God come through her. And as she's telling you a story, turn to me when I say that fact and go, thank you for holding my poems. So then she keeps talking. And I was like knocked out. I was like, my friends are geniuses. They're beautiful. They're perfect. And that was a poem.
That was a poem.
Okay, so do you have a poem to share with the listeners, with us, or anything?
One of my poems? What do I want to hold a poem?
Or like, you know what? I think even to your creative process, like you writing jokes or something, like I even think the top 10s is a poem. Like, is there a poem that really means something to you that you've never shared before because nobody's asked, right? Like, oh, when I was a kid, I saw this thing and...
Okay. If I had to encapsulate one thing that tonally is like my whole thing, it would be Woody Allen. Woody Allen, my personal hero.
Imagine we don't laugh.
No, but we don't laugh and we're like, and cut. No, exactly that. Just straight to air.
That'd be very like Andy Kaufman meta of you to just say that was your identity.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But I don't know why this is the thing that keeps popping up in my brain, but I think about a lot of the things that I end up writing, and they're always things about women who are... I'm such a people pleaser.
Love it.
And I want everybody to feel seen and loved by me.
And they do.
And the things that I like writing about are horrible women. Horrible women
who don't have to make anyone feel okay.
I love writing horrible women and saying mean things. One of the things that I always remember is that it was kind of a mean thing that I said once.
Obsessed.
But I do think that it's
so empowering to people pleasers.
It's so very much where I stand.
I support you.
I don't know why I thought of this. This is so fun.
I love that you did. You have to follow it.
It's such a weird thing. Perfect. It's not specific. Please don't put this on my gravestone.
I will.
This is not my thing, but it's the thing I thought about the most. I was having dinner with 2 friends of mine, and we were talking about female tropes and like tropes of like, you know, like what kind of woman. We were talking about this woman actually that we knew.
Yeah.
A very beautiful woman. And I said, well, you know, she's a jewelry designer, which is code for pretty and unemployed. And I remember getting us laughing so hard because it was
also was this
a very mean thing to say.
2017 because the way jewelry designers were left and right and they were beautiful models, it was crazy.
Oh, jewelry designers are always a rich woman who is
I know one
who has financing,
real, and I was like, how are you real? Who's not a rich woman? I was like,
if you're a jeweler, you're a pretty thin woman who has bird bones and
why it's funny because it's indicative of all that. It's funny.
Pretty and unemployed. It's not the funniest thing I've ever said, but it was kind of a thing where I was like, that feels slightly mean, but it is so specific.
Yes.
And that totally
you're probably friends with the jewelry designer, beautiful thin girl who's very rich, who you like and who is nice, who like, it is a risk, but it's so true because it is symbolic of the exact joke.
Yes.
And I do think that is like an incredible thing to do because it's like, I struggle with being mean in my comedy, but it's where I'm the fucking funniest. And it's where it's the truth. And it's because I'm worried about hurting people's feelings, even though it's the funniest fucking shit.
Oh, yeah. And I also don't want to generalize, but I'm also like, I'm going to generalize.
And obviously and it's like, but that's the thing. Because you're like, obviously there are wonderful jewelry designers who are rich and blah, blah, blah. But you're like, no, but mainly I'm saying like, what a luxury of a whatever, you know, like.
Yes.
I love that. I actually really do love that.
Thank you. I don't know why that was a specific thing, but it was a thing that I remembered because later on I was like, oh, I want to make that the woman that is like, in a lot of the things that I end up writing, it's like a horrible woman who kind of envies that type of person.
Oh,
I feel like
plagued by her own neuroses.
Yes, that has no patience for twee behavior.
I was brought up on
for
truth
twee
about
women.
I was brought up on the truth about cats and dogs with Janine Garofalo and Uma Thurman. And
classic.
The way at 7, I was like, I hate Uma Thurman. I'm Janine. I hate these women who are just experiencing pleasure, and you know what I mean.
I know,
like
and it
free.
feels so reductive and
like feels so anti-feminist, but it's not.
And you know what I mean.
It's symbolic
like,
of the patriarchal woman. Do you know what I mean? Of the design a woman had to be for a man to enjoy.
Of course,
but it's so nuanced that you can't say that without feeling like you're kind of hating on women. So it's like, oh, fuck.
No, I know, and then you end up. It is totally. I think if you were to like encapsulate a little bit of what I'm very drawn to,
I love
it's a little bit of getting that little. Yeah, you know what I mean? That kind of like, this poem is important. The tweeness of just,
and also when that joke hits, like, because I've told those jokes, you know, you're among people who understand you, right? When they know you're not me or whatever. Like because the other day I like posted a headshot and like
brave.
Thank you. And I really wanted to put under it because it is a headshot. So I'm being this woman or person.
Oh, those were beautiful, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Beautiful.
And it's so funny because even when I'm being girly, I'm like woman, but every other time I'm like non-binary. But it felt like I was being her, right? Like, because I was like, my joke was, and of course I didn't post it, but it was like, should I post this with a vaguely inspirational quote and say I'm hot, or a Toni Morrison quote that's not meant for a pretty white woman and say I'm hot?
Let's just, what are we going to do to diffuse this?
Exactly. And I was like, and then I'm like, oh, I wish I didn't have to. I wish I was her. I wish I could not be self-aware.
Oh, we were all brought with that kind of thing where it's like, gas yourself up and then cut yourself off right at the knees.
It's all the same oppressor.
Oh, of course. You can't possibly say like, no, you got to, it's not holding like a rubber chicken in a bikini, but it's very Jenna, that.
It's Jenna and Tina, or it's Jenna and Liz Lemon.
100%.
Don't hold the rubber chicken.
It's very that.
Okay, wait, you actually have to go because it's 6:15. You'll get there on time. Okay, but listeners, I love Albertina with my whole heart. This has been my joy. Where can anybody find you if you want them to consume your artistic content?
Okay, don't find me.
I love that. I love that. Oh my God, she is what she is.
I mean, you will find me on
the streets,
the stupid social media that I've been consuming and part of since
your infancy?
Lord knows, so long.
Albertina was an early work that quit.
I really was on Twitter quite a bit. And you know what? Listen, this is what happens when you are not willing to put yourself out there. And, for all I joke, I was the person in the laptop clickety-clacketing my little jokes, like
sipping
the brave
a big gulp
person
from
that I am.
7-Eleven.
Real brave on my part.
I love her.
Me who's like, live life, be present, and then also tweet at every given moment.
Yeah, but guess what? Everything is in the attempt,
Well, clown's got a clown, you got to get it out somewhere.
Coffee shop ass bitch.
What we need to discuss next time, by the way, I hope anything I said made sense.
I'm in heaven with what you said personally, not even oddly.
Great. Yeah. Okay, sure. I'm sure somebody will get something out of it. Hopefully, just us.
Story of our life.
But I will say that we must discuss at some point the fear of online persona versus in person, like who you are, and that fear of, oh, I'm brave enough to say this thing here, but then when you see me in person, like I'm so Sesame Street in person, and I want to be beloved by everyone who meets me, and I want everybody to be treated with kindness or whatever, but I also want to clown the shit out of people.
But the fallacy, right, is that like people
but not to their face.
But that's what I'm saying. But the fallacy is that like people wouldn't love you if you did the clown thing, right? That's not fallacy, but it's like the idea of like the fear is that like even the artifice of not being something in person, of the artifice of the online sort of like having to hide behind something. Yeah. It's like you're worried even about that being perceived and needing to like live up to something in person versus that. It's like constantly in conversation with something.
Oh yeah, 100%.
It's hell. Well, we will. We'll talk, sister. We're talking for 100 years. I love you with all my heart, and
love you.
I let people know at the end. I'm not really good with transitions, but I say, "Oh my God, you're so pretty."
Oh,
I love you. Okay, bye. Worse Than You with Mo Fry-Pasek is hosted by me, Mo Fry-Pasek. You can learn more about this week's guest and the Worse Than You team by checking out the show and episode copy. Worse Than You with Mo Fry-Pasek is executive produced by Erica Ghetto, Mariah Gossett, and Lauren Mandel for Good Get and Disco Nap Productions. Oh my God, you're so pretty. We can start with The Tonight Show starring, I didn't know it was starring Jimmy Fallon. I thought it was with. That's diva.
Well, yeah, no, it is. You know why? Because the original was named that. Mm-hmm. It was starring
Johnny Carson?
That's correct.
Got it. Okay.
So they wanted to leave it that way. I remember like it took us a while to figure out when we switched from late night with to starring.
Yeah.
We're like, oh, okay.
Diva house down.